Hello everyone, it's Caitlin, and today we are making a pair of 1920 chemises. Hello and welcome. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to be using this regular, very light pink cotton for my chemises. And I went, oh gosh, I did a lot of looking into this and deciding exactly what I wanted for underpinnings, because the 1920s seems to have a lot of options. You can go like the drawer chemise combination, you can go with like the envelope chemise, you can go with raw and tap pants, you can go with like a chemise and tap pants, you can go with, and like all of those you could be wearing various types of corsetry, or you could not, and there's a lot of options. So I think I finally narrowed it down to what I wanted, which is a very simple envelope chemise, and we'll do separate garters, like little ribbon ones, and a bra corset type thing next month, and then a slip. So I kind of want it to be a little less rigid than my 19-teen stuff, so we're going with the short corset. Anyway, so my directions that I'm using are originally from the 1920s, but someone on Etsy has modernized them, and it's just the chemise page, or at least this one chemise page, so we're going to be making that chemise. But it is an original 1920s pattern. The lady who did this I guess she worked with Andover or something, and so she gives you fabric specifically used for all the projects, which I don't think is correct. I don't think I've seen any patterned under things for the 1920s. I know I've seen colors like pink and nude, and I think of a very light pastel colors, but I don't think I've seen prints. So I'm kind of ignoring the modern part of this and just kind of going with the directions on how to make it. But I know I've seen pink underwear, so that's what we're going to go with. So what we're going to do is I'm going to even out this edge first. And the directions are for a smaller size, so it calls for 36-inch wide fabric. I'm going to go ahead and use the full 44-inch width I have here, because I need a little bit more room in the hips. We are going to make two chemises though. So it's the 44-inch width. I'm going to go ahead and do the 27-inch height. There we go. Yeah, on plain cottons you can just rip them and they rip straight, and it's really nice. Do be careful that what you're ripping is a plain weave, because some other weaves don't rip nicely and you will ruin your fabric. I tend to always rip my fabric on screen, and I've had viewers going, I tried that and it didn't work for me. I was like, okay, what fabric were you using? Yeah, that's not a good fabric to rip. So just be aware, plain weaves you can rip typically if they're well made. Some are made crooked and they're inferior goods, so they're usually sold cheaper. But as long as you get a decent quality of fabric, it should rip straight. And I mean, I bought this from Walmart, so it still is working. Now we're going to do another 27-inch, but this one we're going to cut in half. Now I have my, actually no, I need more pieces. I need a flap, 2 flaps. Okay, 8 inches. I'm debating whether to make it a little bit longer since I am wider in the stomach. Let's go ahead and cut it 20, and I can always cut it down if it's too big. Okay, first step. I do need to go ahead and cut some gores, I guess, the top, or tops, yeah, of the tops of the fronts. Not gores. I guess they're not gores because they're not added in, they're subtracted. They're, there's a word for it, darts. It is first thing in the morning, so I woke up 10 minutes ago. But I need to get this done, so we're going to go ahead and get it done. I'm trying to get this part cut out, just that's what I'm trying to figure out. I have to figure out how wide to make it too. I assume it's, I think that those are actually the side slashes, aren't they? We're going to rip them. We're going to put them right here. Is that 8 inches yet? That is exactly 8 inches. Okay, so there's one. And I think to go ahead and make this easy, Where'd my backs go? And these are selvages, so I have one that's not a selvage though, so do I want to do both edges the same or leave one just like this because it's a selvage and then finish the other? Fell. I mean, I guess I might as well fell them both. It'll feel nicer. I won't have any raw edges or any edges, selvage edges too, rubbing up against me. I could also do French seams because this is the 1920s. And that's a technique we don't usually use on this channel. Okay, so I just had a really long, I don't know, I was very confused by the pattern because the pattern, the modern one, states, sew the chemise front to the back and then sew the back to the other back. And I was like, oh, well, I cut this way too long. Then I look back at the diagram is from the original 1920s, whatever, book, whatever. And it has a chemise front, two chemises back, and a chemise front. And it clearly states this to make two chemises. So I was like, well, the pattern directions can't be right. So I went back and forth for the longest time about what was right and what was wrong. So I finally just went what I should have done beforehand instead of purchasing a modern translation of the period directions. So I looked back at my period books, and it said full width of fabric for the front and either a third or a half width for the back. So I'm doing it right. The directions are wrong. I also, because the original directions actually have a band at the top and I have extra fabric, I'm thinking about making up that band and making my life a little bit easier because I can embroider on the band and it would look really nice instead of embroidering on the chemise front. I could do both though, I think. I haven't fully decided. I'm also going to take the flap and sew it down the long side and down this way. So I fold it in half lengthwise. And this does not need to be done by French seam. Now I can turn this inside out and not iron this. I do need to turn on the iron anyway because we're going to iron the seams that we just did on the chemise fronts so that we can do the French seams. Which makes me wonder, when did French seams show up? Because I've seen them in my original books for the 1920s, but I know they weren't a thing yet in the 1850s, 60s, and 70s. So it makes me wonder when that kind of came into play. Except when I iron everything will come back to the machine. Fun thing about my setup right now, because we're in the hunting cabin, I gotta put this down to iron and then pull it back up to a sew. So this is my sewing table now, my little ironing board, so I had to take the sewing machine down anytime I want to iron. Alright, I have ironed and trimmed those seams, so we're going to sew them again, this time on the other side, so that we have nice finished edges. And this is my finished seam. So I'm going to move on. I think we're going to do the top first. And I'm going to do a nice band like the book I have shows. So I am going to need to also gather the fronts. So I marked the center point, and I marked 1.5 inches on either side. So we want some gathering across the bust to kind of help with the fullness of the bust. So I'm going to run a gathering thread. I'm not sure how long, probably a decent bit, so that I can decide how much I need to gather at that point. So I'm going to do that, finish these other seams because I've only gotten one done so far. And then we'll meet back. I'll probably go ahead and cut the bands. So I just measured across the top of my bust, not the fullest part of my bust, but the top part of my bust. And I got basically 43.5 inches, was loose. So I didn't want it super tight, but I didn't want it loose enough to where it was going to fall. It was somewhere in that middle range. So I'm going to cut my band about 44.5 inches so that after seam allowances we have a nice, good band. So I need this to match that, and right now I think it's at 65 inches in width, which is good for my hips. And of course we have these little walking slits as well. So in theory this should work. All my measurements say it's going to work. I just need to figure out how much I'm going to gather to make that band fit. Alright, so we're going to put on the little flap underneath. I guess this is kind of what drawers are. It's kind of like a combination, but it's not a combination. It's just, you have a flap for underwear, basically. So I stitched it on at the hem and then kind of at the bottom on the back. And we're going to put snaps on the front, which I have this for something else. I don't remember what it was, but I hadn't used it before, and so I'm hoping I'm doing this correctly because it's very, very vague directions. And you can't really see like what side of the pliers are putting. Yeah, it's interesting. So I need it to be like this. And I'm like really muscle into it, and I mean they're in there. I don't know how well they're in there, but they're in there. So I'm basically just hoping I'm doing this right, because this is not something I do, like French seams. So now here's the front. I'm just going to measure where those were so I can get it to match. So I have the center matched or marked, and I'm going to mark there, so I match those centers. And this one should be about right here. And this one should be about right here. Okay. So, and I want it to kind of flip over on the, well, I guess this one's going underneath. Okay. This one's going underneath, because I did it backwards. That's okay. I mean, maybe it'll work. It just doesn't seem very secure. And then we'll have snaps done, and we can go ahead and work on the neckline. Oh yeah, I did hem it, by the way. I did do that off camera. But on the top here, I have my long neckline strip that we talked about. I'm going to mark the center back, because that's where I'm going to put this, the edge. And it gets to set plainly up until we get to our gathers. And I guesstimated on the gathers. I'm hoping it's enough. It's coming out because I already gathered the other one. It looks very gathered, so I'm hoping it's that I shouldn't have, spread them out more. But on the original, the gathers looks like it's only about 2 inches of gathers, which I already have more than that. It just looks like it's very gathered. But I think that's because my bust is a lot smaller than my hips. And so to get it to where it fits on the top and the bottom, there are going to be more gathers. So I think that's why mine looks different. This is the center front. I had it marked center front, but I think. So when I get this side done too, I'm going to sew it all the way across. I do want to do some embroidery. I'm going to look at some originals, see if I can find any, and see if my internet works well enough for that to work out. See if I can, like the pattern I have does have some original options. And I'm thinking somewhere put my initials and then maybe do a little design somewhere else. But I kind of want to see how the originals configure that, if I can find any. I'm just hoping they really fit. If not, we'll be taking this step out. So what I'll probably do is, as soon as this step is done and they're sewn in, before I turn it over, before I put straps in, before I do any of that, I'm going to try it over, just try it on, and see if everything lines up the way I think it should. And I won't be filming that because that probably isn't going to be very modest. That's all prepped. Now I ended up making shoulder straps from the same fabric. The, I think original says to use ribbon, but I know I've seen originals that use the actual fabric. So that's what I've done. I just took a whole length of the cotton and cut it in half. So they're about 22 inches right now. And then I cut 3-inch wide pieces because I wanted 1/2 inch seam allowances, and that would hold it over, mean I would get an inch strap, which is what I wanted. And so I'm just going to turn it inside out, iron it, and then I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to sew these in yet, but that's going to be coming up pretty soon. I might pin them on. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do the fitting anyway. I might as well go ahead and pin these in and see how they look. Iron that. Just stitch across the neckline, and I'll do a fitting on one of them. I need 2 more straps because I'm making 2 chemises. Alright, I'm doing some of the embroidery. So I've done one of them. I'm doing different embroidery on both of the chemises. The other one I did purple and green, and I did it kind of based off an original I found. This one is an original pattern. They didn't necessarily say it was for chemises, and I kind of just modified it slightly. It has my initials in it. But I'm doing mostly bullion stitch, or bullion knot, which is going to be hard to show on camera because I get my fingers in a certain way to do this. But there's my blue. I'm going to go ahead and tie this off, and then we'll go ahead and do the rest of the green. So I'm doing a chain stitch for the stem, and I'm doing more bullions for the leaves, and the leaves are just 2 little bullions right next to each other. And that's what this is that we're doing. So it's chain stitch on the stem, bullion. But after that, we're done. So everything's all nice and finished. We got everything completed. It looks really nice. Trying it on, I was actually very impressed with how well it fit. It looks really good. It fits really well. So I'm actually very impressed with how well this worked, considering I kind of messed with things. And I know typically with like my dresses, I'll show y'all them on afterwards. I'm not entirely comfortable doing that in just this tiny little chemise because it's smaller than my 1860s chemises that I am used to showing people. So I think what we're going to do is just show you them on the ground. I know that's not nearly as fun, but I'll let you see them a little bit more when we finish the bra corset type thing, and I'll feel a little bit more clothed. So then I'll wear everything for y'all then. So y'all tune back in next month if you want to see them on. And here are 2 chemises. So yeah, they turned out really well. They are a little bit fuller in the bust than I think I would otherwise prefer, but they fit my hips. My hips are a lot bigger than my bust, so it kind of actually makes a lot of sense. So for people who are like plus size and that sort of thing. But if you're a little bit thinner, you can probably do the 36-inch wide fabric with half a panel in the back. Or if you're somewhere in between, you could do the 44-inch and do a third panel in the back instead of the half, which is what my book says. So yeah, those are basically chemises. They are super cute. I think I like the purple embroidery better. It looks a lot better. The other one's kind of clunkier than I meant it to be, but it's fine. It works. The only other thing I think I would do differently is seeing a lot of originals, and they had entredo. How do I explain entredo? It's an heirloom stitch, and it has those little holes in it. So you can buy entredo just plain, and you can insert it, but you can also do it by hand. You can do it as a stitch by hand. I've done that by hand, and my machine actually does an entredo stitch, my modern one. Unfortunately, I don't have the needle for it, so I was like mostly done with it, and I thought, oh, that'd be so pretty, because I've seen so many of them where the entredo was just like right across here, and then across the hem, and they did it like right in the middle of the straps, and I thought that'd be like the cutest thing, but I didn't have the needle, and I need these done, because I have to wear them next week, and I have a whole list of other 1920 stuff I have to make, so that's not going to happen, but next time, if I ever make these again, but going back to the embroidery that I did do, this is the one that you saw me do, the blue one. That's a little bit clunkier style. Again, it wasn't actually a chemise that inspired it. It was a printed 1920s pattern that had a bunch of just designs, and I kind of picked one I liked and modified it slightly. So there was that. This is the one that I like. I think it's so pretty. It's nice and tasteful. So those rosebuds are bullion knot as well. So it's 3 bullions, or it's a French knot in the center, 3 bullions across, and 3 larger bullions. That's what makes up those. And that one's just the French knot and the 3 smaller bullions. And then I did the leaves the same as well, and just a pretty kind of cursive K. Those are our very first 1920s garments. I am not a fan of the 20s. I actually hate the 1920s. It's something I've said I would never do. And I know I said about the 1830s, and I also said I would, you know, the two time periods I hate most are 1830s and 1920s. And I ended up loving the 1830s, but I would still never do the 1920s. And if it was up to me, I still wouldn't be doing the 1920s because I still hate the 1920s. But my husband and I bought a 1929 Model A car, and now we got to do stuff with it, apparently. So now I'm making 1920s clothes, and I hate the 20s. I'm making it slightly better by the dress I'm copying is an original of mine that someone gave me. It was his mother's. An older friend of mine, and he gave me some of his mom's dresses from the 20s and 30s. And so, yeah, it makes it slightly better. Like I've already told Rhett, next antique car we get, it's going to be pre-World War I because I like those clothes. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today as we made our 1920 chemises. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Click that little bell notification so you're notified anytime I upload a new video. We'll be doing 20th century stuff once a month from here on out. So if you're interested in the 20th century stuff, you should be able to, when you click that bell notification, click notify for all videos or for similar videos. And if you do that, then you can only be notified for like this type of stuff. Hopefully it'll just pick out the 20th century stuff because I will tag a lot of the same things. So hopefully it'll trick the algorithm to giving you the content that you like. Otherwise, just come back here once a month and it'll probably be a video. But with all that being said, have a fantastic week, and I'll see you in the next video.